Today we are graphing equations by hand, and it's part 1. We will complete part 2 tomorrow. So by hand, so you'll see you need graph paper for this note video, just one piece. I'm doing the work big, but you can do it small. So graphing equations by hand. Now do not write this, but I just want you to remember. Last week we graphed, like you had an equation, you made an XY table, you filled in that table, and then you made a graph with a scale, you plotted the points, and then you drew a line. Okay, that's how we did graphs last week. What I'm telling you today is that basically, instead of doing all 3 of these steps to get to the graph, as long as you have this correct, you can graph straight from an equation. You don't have to create a table and then plot the points. You can go straight from there, and that's what we're going to work on today. So you do need to write this, and you're going to write it a lot smaller than me because I'm using a whole piece of paper, and you just have one piece of paper. So do write it small, but here are their steps. And there's only 2, and it is very simple. Okay? Very, very, very simple. The first thing you always do, always, 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 is you put a point at the y-intercept. So you put a point at the y-intercept. Okay? First thing you always do. The second thing you do is something that you've already done in some form or fashion, and that is you do rise over run. Okay? Now you don't have to draw this, but if you remember rise over run, that's where you have 2 points. So don't draw this. So let's say you had a point here and a point here, and you went up a certain amount and over a certain amount, right? We've done that before. So we're basically going to do that again today. You'll see how. But those are your only 2 steps. And I'm going to keep those handy so I can look back at them. Okay? So on your paper, smally, or in a small fashion, go ahead and write this equation. Y equals 2/3 x minus 1. Okay? And then since you have graph paper, very neatly, I need you to draw a graph. Mine's going to be bigger than you need because I need to show you it on the video, but you can make yours smaller. But I do need to make sure you're writing it on the lines. Okay? And just to get in the practice, you need a label. This is y, and this is x. Okay? So go ahead and do that. So, the very first thing it is asking me to do is to put a point at the y-intercept. So I need to look here. That's my slope. This is my y-intercept. My y-intercept is -1. So I need to go on my y-axis and put a point at -1. So I need you to draw a dot there. Okay? -1, -1. Okay? That's the first thing. Okay? The second thing is we do rise over run. And if you want to add it, I should have already. I need you to write with the slope. You do rise over run with the slope. I don't know why I didn't say that before. My bad. Okay? So rise over run. So real quick, if you want to write it over here, I'll write it in red so you can see. We're going to do rise over run. And since this says the slope is 2/3. What that means is that positive 2 is up, right? I'm going to go up 2 and then over 3 and then put a point. That's all it means. Up 2/3. So you start at the point you already made. Don't start at 0. Don't start somewhere else. The point you already made, I need you to count up 2. So it's kind of hard to see with me. And then over 3. And then you put a point. Okay? So between these 2 points, you go up 2 and then over 1, 2, 3. And then you can do it again if you want to. Up 2 over 1, 2, 3. Okay? There you go. And you'll see a line start to form that crosses the y-axis at -1 and has a slope of 2/3, up 2/3. And you could really do this forever. Also, let's clarify, when you go over, when you start off with, always go to the right. It just makes it easier. Okay? But you can go to the left as well just by doing the opposite. So the opposite of going up and to the right is going down and to the left. So instead of up to right 3, you could go down to left 3. And put a point. Okay, and you'll see it's still in that same line. Okay, now you need to draw a straight line. Let me just give you a pointers real quick. You use your ID, right? I have my ID here. I can't really draw this with one hand, but we'll just do my best. So what some of y'all are doing is this, and that is wrong. Do not just draw a line like that. That's not what I want. This is what I want. And you're going to have to bear with the darkness for a second. You need to draw a line that goes all the way in both directions with arrows on the sides. So real quick, now my line goes all the way, and then you need to draw arrows because that line is going to continue in both directions. Okay, that's how I need to see your line. I don't want to see it like connect the dots. Don't do that. I just want a straight line with your ID. If your dots are not creating a straight line, you are doing something wrong. Call me over. Okay? Now don't say, oh, I got this. Let me go to the next. Let me move on to my assignment. You need to see every example. They're all for a purpose. Okay? So go ahead and write this equation down. It's going to be a lot smaller. And then go ahead and draw yourself a little graph. Mine's going to be much bigger than you need because you need to see it bigger on the video. Okay. Yet again, label Y and X. You need to get used to that. Okay? So my first step was to put a point at the y-intercept. So I go here, and my y-intercept is a positive 4. So on the y-axis, I put a point. So I start here at 0 and I count up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll put a dot there. Okay? That dot is at positive 4. Alright? Then I'm going to do rise over run. So you don't have to write this, but I do. Rise over run with the slope. And the slope is negative 1/2. So this is different because if I rise negative 1, that doesn't mean up 1. That means I go down 1. So if you want to make a little note, you go down 1, but you still go over 2. You always go to the right. So I'm going to go down 1 and then over 2. So I start at my point. Don't start at 0. Start at your point. And I need to go down 1 and over 2. So I start here and I go down 1, over 2. And I put a point. Okay? And do it again. Down 1, over 2. Put a point. Down 1, over 2. And you're basically making yourself a little line here. Okay? You could go to the other side by doing the opposite. The opposite of going down 1 and to the right 2 is up 1 and to the left 2. So I can go up and to the left and make the opposite if I wanted to. Okay? Yet again, you need to use a straight edge to draw a line, so you're going to be in blackness for a second. So while I draw my line, there needs to be arrows. Right now, you should have your ID out right now, drawing a straight line. There you go. I need arrows on the end. Awesome. Okay? That's it. That's all we're doing for now. Look at another example. And you'll see something different here. And you'll see the slope's not a fraction. And we're going to figure out how to do that. So write that kind of small and draw yourself a small graph. Mine's going to be bigger so you can see what's going on. Always X and Y. Okay. So the first thing we always do is we put a point at the y-intercept. So I look here. My y-intercept is a positive 3. So I start at 0 and go up 3. And put a point. Okay, so y-intercept, count up 3, there we go. Now, I do rise over run with my slope, but we'll see a difference here. We'll see that my slope is 2, but there's no fraction. So if there is no fraction, 2, always put it over 1. Okay, so if you need to make a note somewhere, if not a fraction, put it over 1. And that's a really, really important note to remember. If it's not a fraction, put it over 1. Okay? So it's a positive 2, so I'm going to go up 2 and then to the right 1. So I start at my y-intercept. I go up 2 and to the right 1. Okay? Up 2 to the right 1. Alright? And then I can do the opposite. The opposite of going up 2 and to the right 1 is down 2 and to the left 1. So down 2 and to the left 1. Okay? You could continue this your whole graph, or you could just have a couple of dots. Okay, yet again, real quick, when you're drawing your lines again, don't just, this is not a straight edge, so it's bad, but don't just draw your line like this and put your arrow like right there. I want your line to go through, however big your graph is, I need the line to go through that whole graph. So even if your dots are only there, make sure you draw your line, yet again, this isn't going to be perfect, I didn't use my straight edge this time, through your whole graph. Make sure. So if your graph's small, make sure it goes that way. If it's big, it has to go through the whole graph. Okay? We have 2 more, and you're going to see the difference. With each one has a different component to it. So real quick, y equals 4x. Draw yourself a little graph. Pause if you need to. The difference between this one is that we have to put a point. Oh, sorry, yx. bad, Mrs. Molina. We have to put a point at our y-intercept. And you're going to say, well, there is no y-intercept here. Well, the y-intercept is then 0. So then basically all you do is you put a point at 0 at the origin. So if there is no y-intercept, that just means 0. And if you want to make a note, you can, or if not, just remember, if there is no y-intercept, it's at 0. Then we do rise over run. And my slope is 4. There is no fraction, so I put it over 1. Which, since it's positive, I'm going to go up 4 over 1. So I start here, and I go up 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. I could do it again, or I could just do the opposite, which would be down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and to the left 1. Alright, and then I'm going to draw my line with my ID. So you're going to be in the dark for a second. I have my ID. It has to span my whole graph, not just a little bit of it, which means I kind of have to move my ID a little bit. And there you go. Okay? A way to check if you're right, this is a positive slope. This is a positive slope as well. So if it's going the other way, you know you're doing it wrong. Last example, and then we're done. And this example is for a purpose. What if the slope, by the way, this says y equals 4 minus 1/3 x. I want to show you if it's in a different order. So write it down, pause it, put a little graph real quick. And then we do y and x. Okay? We put a point at our y-intercept. First thing is we always put a point at the y-intercept. Well, here, they're in a different order. That's the slope. This is the y-intercept. So I'm going to put a point at positive 4. So even if it's in a different order, it's still the same thing. Okay? Positive 4. And then I do rise over run. And my slope is at positive 1/3 or negative 1/3. And you're going to say that is negative 1/3. Okay? The negative always goes with the one on top. So if I need to make that correction, negative always goes on top, okay? Since it's negative 1, instead of going up 1, I'm going to go down 1, but always to the right 3. So I start on my y-intercept, and I go down 1 to the right 3. Down 1 again to the right 3. I can do the opposite. I can go up 1 and to the left 3 as well. Okay? Last time you're in the darkness, I'm going to get my ID out. Yet again, tips while you're doing your assignment, if you're plotting points and they don't look like they're in a straight line, you're doing something wrong. If the slope is positive, a positive number, and you are getting a negative slope, you're doing something wrong, so call me over. And voila, there you go. Okay? You did a bunch of examples, good job. Your assignment today, pull it up on your computer, but you're going to do your graphs on my handout. Okay? So do your graphs on my handout. Let me know if you have questions.